I'm a civil rights attorney retained by the family of Michael Dean to investigate the shooting that occurred on this Monday by the Temple, Texas Police Department. I am going to take a moment and allow everyone here to introduce themselves. These are all important members of Michael's family. They're not going to give a statement at this point, but they are going to say their names and spell it for the record so that you all have it. I'll start here.
My name is Christine Dean, ChristineDean, and I'm Michael's mother.
And I'm leaning in because I'm the one that's Mike, so I'll be sort of in your space. Mom, could you introduce your... Oh, actually, we're going to keep them out. Actually, I apologize. And you'll say your name and spell it for the record.
My name is Arquisha. I'm his girlfriend, spelled Rqueshia.
All right, and the mother of the two children here?
The mother of my girls.
And her mother is here.
My name is Lavinia. It's Louvenia.
Okay, and I'm working around here where his brother's present. And I know the cameras are in front of me here, so if you could just say and spell your name for the record.
My name is Demonte Dean, Domonte Dean, and I'm one of Michael's brothers.
Okay, Dad.
Moses Dean, Mosesdean, the father of Michael Dean.
Okay, and then you two young ladies. You two, yeah.
My name is Yasmin Dean. I spell it Yasmine Dean, and I'm Michael's sister-in-law.
And I am Tashina Dean. That's Toshenadean, and I am Michael's older sister.
And I apologize for the sort of awkwardness of that, but I want to make sure that you all knew who was represented here. We're here at the Justice Center. This is to my understanding, the Bell County District Attorney's Office. This is where the people of Bell County go to for justice. This family has learned very little information since Monday, when we learned from law enforcement that their loved one, Michael Dean, had been shot. It is our understanding that he was shot in the head. We have not recovered his body from the state yet. We understand that it's in a facility that's in Dallas, and we're coordinating with the state to recover his body so that we can perform our own independent autopsy and learn more about what happened. In the meantime, the Temple Police Department, the Texas Rangers, and the District Attorney's Office has a responsibility to this family and to this community for transparency. They have an absolute obligation to provide every piece of information that they know that will make clear what caused a police officer to use deadly force against the person of Michael Dean, who we understand to be nonviolent and to be unarmed. We have no narrative whatsoever. We have no indication whatsoever as to what caused this officer-involved shooting to take place, other than a traffic stop involving a minor traffic infraction. It is difficult for any family to process the loss of a loved one. It's more difficult when the loss of a loved one takes place at the hands of the state. It is impossible to accept when there's a black box of information, when there are people who know what happened, when there are officers who are involved who are being protected, when there are details that are being left out of the public. And look, this family is not interested in a public charade. They're not interested in massive media attention. They don't need the images of what happened released to the media. They do need it released to their attorneys. They need to see it themselves, and they have every right to know what happened. The reason that body cam and dash cam exists is to serve families like this, and so that there will be no widespread speculation, so that there will be no unanswered questions as we seek justice. The reason we chose this office in particular, because we know that there is at least probable cause, based on the information that's available, that a crime took place in Temple, Texas. And when crimes take place in Temple, Texas, it should be at some point referred over to the District Attorney's Office. Now, there are investigative bodies. The Temple, Texas PD have a responsibility to perform their own internal affairs investigation. We're not particularly interested in the outcome of their internal affairs investigation. We understand that the Texas Rangers has a responsibility to investigate it as they were requested to by the Temple PD. We're not particularly concerned about the outcome of that investigation. However, this office serves the people of Bell County, the voters, and this family, and we are interested in them performing a thorough, accurate, and expedient investigation. We understand that Henry Garza is currently not in the county. He is traveling. The moment he gets back, I expect him to meet with this family, as any family would expect. We expect him to lay out what this family can expect in the coming days, weeks, and months. And we expect justice. We appreciate the members of the media who have followed this story, who have done their role in keeping the community up to abreast of what happened, and putting pressure on policymakers and decision makers in investigating and revealing and sharing with this family what happened. At this point, I'll take some questions.
Can I clip this on you real quick?
Please.
I'm very sorry.
No, quite all right.
Thank you.
No problem.
The biggest question is, it's now Friday. How long does it usually take for anybody to come up with answers, even during an investigation?
There is no typical time. Under the law, the police department had every right to tell this family what they knew. They chose not to, which to me implies a cover-up. They're willfully withholding information from this family. Now, they have asked for the Texas Rangers, which is an independent investigative body, to come in and investigate. They should do that. They shouldn't investigate themselves. But telling this family what happened and allowing an outside agency is not a conflict of interest. They can do both. And their failure to do so is a denial of justice, procedural justice, to this family.
Do we know what Mike was doing or where he was driving to at the time that he was pulled over?
What we know is that Mike had work later that day. He was killed on his daughter's birthday, and he was working to provide for the festivities that he planned to have that weekend. He was coordinating earlier with the mother of his children to purchase her a birthday cake. She was coordinating to meet with him sometime. The last time she spoke to him was around 6 p.m. He was at an apartment complex nearby, near the scene of where this happened. Since then, she was not able to reach him. She called him about the time that we believe the shooting took place, around 8 o'clock. And she called him all throughout the night till about 2 a.m. When she couldn't reach him, she went out to look for him herself, and she learned of this officer-involved shooting.
Is it a concerning factor that it took almost 4.5 hours to notify the family?
It's absolutely a concern. A press release was released by the police department prior to contacting this family. That's absurd that they felt it was more important to communicate with the public than it was to the actual victims of the shooting.
At that point, they had already identified the man. They knew who the family was?
I can't say that. I haven't spoken with them. I can say that a deputy chief has reached out to the family today and asked to meet with them, I believe for the first time. Is that accurate? And so the first meeting with law enforcement will be today. Up until this point, they said that the investigation was out of their hands. With the mounting media pressure, they've decided that it's now okay to meet with this family, and we will.
Did they say why it took so long for them to approach the family about everything?
They haven't, but we will ask during our meeting.
And who was able to identify the body?
His body has yet to be identified formally by this family. His body was whisked away to Dallas County, which is 2 to 3 hours away. Has not been returned yet, and this family cannot even confirm that Michael Dean, who was killed, was in fact their loved one.
And in the cases you've covered, is that abnormal?
That is absolutely abnormal.
And what does that say about this whole investigation so far? And what's the next steps that you guys are looking at?
I can tell you a number of red flags, and this shouldn't be typical enough to have a standard procedure. Unfortunately, it is, to the tune of 1,100 people a year killed by law enforcement, and that number has been particularly active in North and East Texas in recent months. A lot of red flags went off when, number one, we had an individual who was shot one time in the head. That doesn't imply a scuffle, that implies an execution. Now, I don't want to speculate, this family doesn't want to speculate, but without more information, what left do we have to do? From there, there was absolutely no narrative presented, no gun, no resisting, there was nothing told. And so Texas Rangers were immediately brought in, which again sets off a red flag, because obviously there was at least an indication or implication of misconduct. We're still waiting for answers.
Do you think this officer needs to be identified?
Absolutely, and it's critically important that this officer is identified as quickly as possible. Just like any other criminal, we want the public to have his image, to have his name. We want the public to be able to say whether or not they had encounters with this person, whether they had a reputation or a pattern of practice of brutalizing this community. If the officer is protected from the beginning, then we miss out on an opportunity to link this behavior to possibly a course and conduct of brutality throughout this community. We don't know if he's fleeing the city. We don't know anything about this officer, and that's not okay. That's not how we treat a common criminal. An officer should be held to a higher standard, not a lower one.
And does that pose a threat to the Temple community with this officer not being?
Yeah. If someone was willing to shoot an unarmed man in the head, and we don't know who he is, and we don't have any explanation for the justification for the use of force, then he absolutely represents a danger to this community. He should be arrested. He should be properly indicted. He should be vigorously prosecuted and held accountable, just like any other person who commits murder within this jurisdiction.
You mentioned that you guys are having a meeting later today. What are you hoping to gain out of that meeting?
I have to tell you that I've tempered this family and my own expectations of anything from the law enforcement agency who is actually responsible for the death of their loved one. We're reluctant to take the meeting, to be quite honest. We're hoping that they will be transparent. We're hoping that they will side on the side of justice in terms of not only their words but in their actions. We would like to hear that they're willing to identify the officer, that they're going to terminate the officer, and that they're going to press for criminal charges against the officer if that is what the facts belie.
And are you planning to hold them accountable if that's not what they do?
Absolutely. Regardless, the Texas Police, the Temple, Texas Police Department is liable in this case. They are responsible for training this officer, for retaining this officer. They're responsible for the policies and procedures, the SOPs that this officer goes into the community with. And so regardless, his family is going to be interested in holding the Temple Police Department accountable.
How long until the family can see the body or identify the body?
We are working, we've been working since we got involved in this case yesterday to make sure that happens. We believe that would happen today. For whatever reason, the body was stalled in Dallas, and so we will continue to work. We don't have a timeline.
And there was a mixed story. They told the family that the body was in Dallas at one time, and then they came to find out the next day that the body was here in Waco. What do you say to that?
Again, bodies, firearms, etc., critical pieces of information, of evidence, and I hate to refer to their loved one as such, but at this point, his body is a critical piece of evidence. There should be no obscurity about where it is, what state it's in. The chain of custody should be absolutely clear. And it indicates a lack of professionalism for them to not be able to provide those answers at any given moment to this family.
So what's next for the family? I mean, you're going to be meeting with law enforcement tonight, and then what? We're going to take the steps following whatever results from that?
We'll be meeting with law enforcement tonight. We'll be actively pursuing a meeting with the District Attorney Henry Garza concerning his investigation and the next steps. And the family and I will be conducting our own parallel investigation, gathering evidence, seeking body cam footage, filing Freedom of Information Act requests in order to recover any information or evidence that's in the hands of the state, and turning that file over to Mr. Garza himself. Our primary concern is criminal accountability for the officer. A latter concern is civil responsibility for the department.
If there was something that went wrong, the department's the one that's going to take charge on that?
If you're implying if there was misconduct on behalf of an officer or the force, Mr. Garza will be responsible for taking charge of that.
You mentioned earlier that there were some red flags with the Texas Rangers getting involved. Is that not standard operating procedure in a situation like this, as you understand it?
It's standard operating procedure when there's an indication of misconduct. In other words, if an officer is going about doing their job, then you don't bring in the Texas Rangers. However, if there's evidence that officer violated their jobs, then you do in fact bring in Rangers. So what the presence of the Rangers tells me is that they believe something was done wrong.
Just 2 days ago, there was another 28-year-old shot in McKinney County by an officer. He was involved with the shooting and return shots. Do you think that Clinton County's level of transparency should have been the example that Temple's level of transparency should have taken, as far as that's concerned?
Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with that or their level of transparency in that shooting.
Just, I guess, so we know, can you guys explain the kind of person that Mike was, just so we know him as a person?
I'm gonna hold that question. I'll see if a family member's interested in talking about that, and limit it to that question. I'll see if there's any more questions for me, and then we'll go from there. All right. If anyone's going to speak, I would ask you to speak. Are you interested in describing your brother as a person? Okay, come on up here. I'm gonna give you these mics. If you all don't mind, I'm gonna mic him up. You want to explain to them who you are, and then go from there. I will help you out here.
I'll help you guys out. You're a little bit wired, but just swap it over to this side.
Now, you don't have to repeat the things I said. You want to be relatively curt. You just want to tell them. You want to humanize your brother, which is important, right? I don't know if you can fit all that there, but you look like RoboCop now.
Okay, so.
Yep.
So my name is DeMonte Dean. I am Michael's second oldest brother. The type of individual that Michael was, he was a caring man. He always felt the need to put his needs above others. I made a post not too long ago describing what he was, and every time I got off the phone with him, his last words were, "Love you, big bro," every time. He always asked me if I needed anything. He was just a genuine, great guy.
How has this affected your family?
As far as us as a whole, we're just looking to get answers.
All right, and that's all the questions we're going to take from now. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for coming out, guys. I'll go ahead and take this out. All right. I'll place these here.